So what I want to do here is to show you polymorphism and virtual functions. Now, polymorphism is a special kind of behavior that we can achieve using virtual functions. What I have in front of me here is a scene with 3 colored cubes, and these cubes are, as always, going to stand in for different enemies in our game. You can see here in the hierarchy panel these objects are enemy 1, enemy 2 and enemy 3, and each of them have an enemy component script attached to them, and you can see that here in the object inspector. Now I'm just going to press the play button on the toolbar, and when I press the space bar on the keyboard we see that enemy 1 launches an attack, enemy 2 launches its attack, and so does enemy 3. And if we visit mono-develop here to have a look at the enemy class, you can see that we have this attack coroutine. We know it's a coroutine because it returns the type I enumerator. And we have this attack coroutine here which launches the spin attack for each cube. Now we also have a game manager class, and it has an enemy's attack coroutine here which launches the attack for each of the enemies. So right here in the start function you can see that we get an array of enemy objects. These are all the enemies in the scene. We're searching for the enemy class that's attached to each of the cubes. So this generates a list of all the cube enemies. And here in this coroutine, when I press the space bar, it launches the attack for each enemy in sequence. Now this functionality works absolutely fine, but there is a potential problem that could arise. For example, right now these 3 enemies all have the same attack. It might be that we wanted to create different enemies and for each of them to have different types of attack. So perhaps this one would spin around, this one would disappear, this one would print hello world to the screen, or any other attack type that we wanted to create. So we may want to code these enemies with different attack types. So to customize the behavior of the enemy class, we would typically create a new class derived from enemy class and attach that to the objects that we wanted to differ. For example, if these 2 objects here were to have the spin attack, these would remain with the enemy class. But if we wanted to adjust this object here, we would derive a new class and attach that to the object. Now there is a problem in doing this, and I'm going to show you what it is. I'm actually going to create a derived class. So I'm going to right click here in the asset panel and choose create and C# script from the menu. I'm going to name our derived class super enemy because it's going to derive from the enemy class. And I'm going to double click that file to open it in mono develop, and here we have super enemy. Now we want it to derive from the enemy class. We're going to be attaching this to one of our enemies to make its behavior differ. So we're going to have this enemy class here, and I'm going to have this give this a completely different type of attack. So I'm going to jump over to the enemy class, highlight the attack coroutine, just copy that, move to the enemy class here, and I'm going to add the enemy's new attack in this function here. Let's just create a return statement, return null, like so. And we're going to adjust the attack of this enemy. Instead of spinning around, it's going to print hello world to the console like so. I'm going to press Ctrl S on the keyboard to save that code, minimize mono develop and jump back to the Unity editor here. We do get a warning which is printed here in the console in yellow, but I'm going to ignore that for the moment. I'm just going to select this blue cube object. This is the object that I want to differ. And I'm going to remove the enemy component from it, and I'm going to assign it our super enemy component and drag and drop that onto the blue cube. And now I'm going to press play on the toolbar, and when I press spacebar on the keyboard you will see that the blue cube still performs the spin attack. It does not print hello world to the console. I can press spacebar again and still we see that spin attack even though it has the super enemy component attached. And the reason for this is because if I jump over to mono develop, you will see in the game manager class in the enemy's attack coroutine where we cycle through all of the enemies that this enemy array is an array of enemy objects. It is not an array of super enemy objects. So what is happening is that it's still using the base class, the enemy class, and it is launching the attack coroutine on that enemy class, which it happens to be the spin attack. that is the attack associated with the base class and not with the derived class super enemy. So Game Manager is launching the wrong attack for the blue cube because the blue cube is a derived class from enemy. So the problem here is that this function is just seeing the enemy version of the class and not the derived version. So we need to fix this. It would be ideal if we could keep all of this code here the same, but just that whenever this launches the attack, it launches the attack for that particular class as opposed to the base class. It would be blind to the data type of the enemy. Well, this kind of behavior is called polymorphism, and we're going to be looking at how to achieve that next using virtual functions.